Welcome back to Brashonomics. I'm Ben Brash, and here today, joining us, a great friend of our show, a good all-around guy. I like him, and if I say he's a good all-around guy, it must be true. Matthew Royal joins us. He has senior-level experience in developing and executing real estate strategies nationally and internationally. Welcome back, Matt. How are you?
Thank you, Ben. It's good to be here, and thank you for that nice introduction.
Well, you've deserved it. I mean, you spent the time and the effort becoming the professional in the industry you are. What do you think about? I brought up at the top of the show about the low expectation of just being accessible, but then that kind of balance of if somebody doesn't have anything going on, they probably are answering the phone immediately, but good people are also busy.
When I meet with a client, I get a lot of calls, and they'll say, hey, I want to find a property, I need space, can you send me a list? 9 out of 10 times, people who are that kind of knee-jerk, I just said, yeah, sure, give me your email address, and I'll send them something. It won't do them any good. But a sincere client would sit down with and talk to them and explain how the industry works, explain how leasing works. I talk to them about their business, find out more about them, their goals, what they wish to accomplish, the right size, the right rent budget, how we want to structure it. So just going out and looking at commercial properties really is wasting the client's time. It's wasting the broker's time. And it's not going to give that client or tenant a good shot if they find a place that they like, because the broker doesn't know anything about them, doesn't know anything about their goals, objectives, business, or anything. So
it really comes down to that. I guess what you're saying is if it comes down to setting an expectation on what somebody's going to go through that makes it a more successful relationship.
Absolutely. And one of the expectations that business people or tenants, clients have at first is there's so much vacant space out there that the landlord should just be giving it away. The owners should say, why would they let their building sit empty at $20 or $25 a square foot? They'd take some rent, wouldn't they? And they go into that planning their business and their long-term objectives based on their thought or philosophy of what the landlord should do because their building is vacant. And that is not the right way to go about it because it's not true.
So I would, from a layman's, I don't rent a whole lot of commercial real estate, but I would say that would make sense. I mean, you have signs literally on I think every building has a sign saying that they are for rent or they have space between, 500 feet and 38,000. I love those ones. It's like you could have one little office or this entire building. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's part of the misconception. And I'm not a commercial mortgage broker. We know that. Nor am I just a mortgage broker. Yeah, that's your folks' department. But if someone has an existing lease, you go to your lease and you look on the back page, maybe 3/4 of the way through, and it's what they call a subordination clause. And that subordination clause, if you read it with this understanding, it'll make sense. And that is, and I'm not an attorney either, by the way, but it says that your lease and the terms are subordinate to the lender. And people go, well, okay. Now, a lot of people get confused. Commercial mortgages are not like residential mortgages. Residential mortgage, you can, as you know, you can buy an investment property. You can have a $2,000 a month mortgage on it, and you can lease it out for $1,000 a month. Nobody says a word about it. It's fine. The bank says as long as you make your note, you're fine. Well, commercial mortgages, a little more complicated. So when you're going in for and these are all fictitious numbers, so don't anyone sit at home with a calculator and try to reverse engineer this and say, aha. But the investor or the owner wants to buy a $5 million piece of property. So they come up with their business plan, they submit it, they get their loan, and the bank demands a capital rate of return. And the bank will set that at what they believe, mutually they believe to be on the note. So let's say that's 5.5% or 6% cap, the rate of return that the bank's expecting to see. Well, when they reverse a $5 million note at a 5.5% cap rate on 150,000 square feet, that comes out to the landlord is required to ask a rent of $18. And so in the subordination clause, it says that the landlord can...
$18 a foot a year.
A year, yes, $18 a foot a year. And so the landlord, as with the owner, has ultimate authority to write any lease he wants, $18 and above. Well, let's say they refinanced their building in 2006, 7, 8, 9. And they took money out. Now they're at 90, 95% loan to value. Well, now they're gonna, and the rates at that time were higher. Let's say the average market rate was $24 square foot, and then they had to say above 18. Well, now the rates are 15. So there's a $3 discrepancy there, and people are going elsewhere instead of to their building. So tenants come in and say, your building's vacant. Why don't you drop your rates? Well, the lender won't allow them, according to the terms of their note, to lower it below 18. So now landlords will try to get creative and give you TIs. They'll give you free rent concessions, but the effective rate of the lease has to be $18. So that's why tenants expect that they're going to get a good deal because the building's empty, and then they say, well, the landlord's just being a horse's rump and not coming down. No, the landlord can't. Otherwise, they'll be in violation of their note.
So if they'll be in violation, and now all of a sudden, let's just say a property's, what they need to be is $10,000 a month.
Right.
And they can only, the market maybe allow, if somebody comes in and says $8,000 a month. Well, doesn't the company, the investor, still have to pay the $10,000 a month to the bank?
Yes, absolutely.
But they can't capture the $8,000 that's being offered?
No, because that
doesn't make. I mean, that sounds like
it doesn't make sense. But then what happens is the owner, the person who is a landlord, can go back to the bank and request a write down or approval. Now, for large buildings like say, like it was a Microsoft or an Amazon, it was going to be a full building user, the landlords can go back to the lender and they can restructure something to make it work. But for just, if you're going to be 2% or 5% of a building, that's just not going to work. Along that line, if a landlord wants to try to renegotiate or redo their loan, they can. There's one of three ways they can do it. They can go back and pay the note down to get their the cap rate or to get the final balance where it needs to be. But oftentimes the gross lease value of the lease is $100,000. But in order to buy it down to hit that cap rate to be below 18, they're going to have to pay down $300,000 or $400,000. So it doesn't make business sense. And then number two, they could go back and contact all the investors and ask them to take a write down. But if one of them says no, it's no. And then number three is it's deed in lieu, which is the bank will just take the building back from the landlord when they fail on the note.
It doesn't seem like a very effective or efficient way to do it. It almost seems like it's anti-market driven.
It is the housing crisis that we had for the residential market on steroids for the commercial industry, but it's tighter and it's more locked in. Bigger numbers.
It's tough. It's tough, I think, to stomach as as a small business owner, you go in, and so really you would almost have to find a landlord who has bought a building more recently that isn't stuck in the terms from a different economy.
Right, because many landlords out there, I don't want to say most, but many, have gone ahead and when property values kept going up and rents kept going up, their buildings kept capping higher, and so they'd pull out a note, 95% to value and loan to value, and then buy another building. Sure. And they do that.
Just like they're in residential, but people bought boats and jet skis.
That's right. And they just did it on a grander scale, and then the music stopped, and they're a little tight, and they're stuck. Yeah. So that's, and you've heard it, I think the Bloom, the landlord Bloom company down there in Seattle had some trouble with theirs, and there's been several others. Well,
Matt, thanks. We do have to go to break, but certainly good information, especially if you're out looking for a building to rent for your business, or even if you know somebody who is. I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And when you're dealing with a bank, I mean, that's, I guess, is the potential lessor of the place.
And you assume the landlord has full control over their property, but that is not always the case.
Sounds like a short sale type of, literally, that's like a short sale rent issue that you got to go through. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. When we come back, they're not necessarily commercial buildings, but they're located right next to them there in downtown Seattle. We're going to talk a little bit about the Seattle condo market when we come back.